Missing car alert. Have you seen my car? A black Audi with license plate L333393, missing from Limerick. The owner, John Murphy, that's me, I'm John Murphy, right? And I'm seeking the public's help in locating my car, robbed outside my door last Saturday, early Sunday. I know I drove it home from the pub and parked outside my door, and it's gone. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of my car, contact me, John Murphy, immediately via Bangor Road Garda Station. They know me in there. Don't talk to anyone but Con Scott, Sergeant Scott. He's on the case. Any details, no matter how small, could be crucial in the search for my car, robbed outside my door. Okay? Black Audi. L333933. Go on. That'll do, Margaret. Hit stop on that there for me.
Anyway, so I'll do it now. I'll do the intro now, okay?
Let's see if Will can get through it, because he always fucks up.
Oh man, I'm sorry. All right, no, I definitely am going to fuck up. So anyway, 3, 2, 1. Oh shit! I already fucked up.
You start with hello.
I know, yeah. 3, 2, 1.
I'll use small words that you'll be sure to understand, you warthog-faced buffoon.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
What did you say?
You are a sad, strange little man.
Don't call me stupid.
Hello, and welcome to The Best Bits, a movie podcast where each week we pick our favourite scenes from randomly selected, weirdly specific themes. This is your co-host Will, a writer of 3 films plus a Christmas special, and I'm joined, once again, by my co-host and writer of 1 and a bit films and 3 and a bit episodes of TV, Kevin.
Hello, Will. How are you getting on? I sounded very chipper the way you said it there.
Well, you see, I'm trying to get myself... Well, I'm not getting myself in the mood for being proper and British and whodunity, but I'm kind of nervous because I'm afraid this is the week you might finally either crack the back of my skull with a lead pipe or lace my coffee with poison.
That's not me. That's Podbot you got to watch out for. That's...
Kevin, are you ready?
Yes.
We're talking about Whodunits.
Jesus, just as you were saying that, I was trying to think in my head, who is Sherlock's sidekick? It's Watson. I'm your Watson. Yeah, you're fine.
Great. But Kevin, this week, like many of the episodes of this season, we are very blessed to be joined by an incredible co-host. And our special co-host this week is a writer of 4 feature films, including Sinister, Sinister 2, and Marvel's Doctor Strange, no less. He's also a novelist with 5 novels under his belt, including his most recent novel, Day Zero. And we have him, he's credited as C. Robert Cargill, but we're going to call him informally Cargill.
Captain
Cargill. Cargill.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
That's what the C stands for, isn't it? It's Captain.
That's right, Captain Cargill.
Cargill, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, brilliant.
And we're here this week to talk about Whodunits. What is your relationship with Whodunits, Cargill? I'm going to put you in the hot seat straight away.
Here's the thing, and this will connect with you guys. So over here in the States, we have this channel called PBS, Public Broadcast System, and it's kind of our federally subsidized local station that carries a bunch of content. And in the 80s, we didn't have, much like you guys, we didn't have a lot of stations until cable came along, and PBS was one of the main stations you'd watch. Well, my father's favorite television show on television was this show called Mystery.
Mystery is made possible by a grant from Mobile Corporation.
And it had an exclamation point. For 10 years, it was hosted by Vincent Price, of all people. And it was my dad's favorite show in the world. So much so that he called it his show, as in, like, my show is on. So when he said, I'm going to be watching my show, he was talking about Mystery. Now, what Mystery was was there was this running joke back in the 80s about PBS that, why would you want to watch network television where you can watch sitcoms and made-for-TV movies and news programs when you can watch PBS where you can watch British sitcoms, British made-for-TV movies, and new shows. And what Mystery was it was all of the British procedurals that were coming out at the time being sold over here.
Right.
So I grew up every Thursday night. My dad was watching Miss Marple, Sherlock Holmes, Poirot, Lovejoy, Prime Suspect.
Wow, Jesus.
And so that's what I grew up watching, was a bunch of, these British procedurals, which were far and away better than a lot of the American procedurals, because, we occasionally had like
Murder, She Wrote.
Columbo, Maddox, Rockford Files. Some of them, some of like those were great, but most of our procedurals are very police oriented, Cagney and Lacey, Hill Street Blues, things that were very much about how hard it is to be a cop as opposed to good old fashioned detective stories. But yeah, I grew up just in love with Whodunits.
Good evening. Welcome once again to Gory Mansion. I'm Vincent Price. Tonight on Mystery, we're back with the third series about our old friend Horace Rumpel of the Bailey, London's Central Criminal Court.
The other aspect of my childhood was my family had family night. And what we do every Saturday night, we would make homemade pizza and we would rent a movie from the video store and watch it as a family. And whenever it was my dad's turn, he would always pick a thriller or a mystery movie. That's all. So anything that came out in the 80s and 90s was baked into my DNA. When they did the Murder on the Orient Express recently, in my head the entire time I was comparing it to the late 80s version with Hercule Poirot of I forget the name of the actor who was playing him.
It wasn't David Suchet, was it?
Yeah, it is David Suchet. That's who it was.
Yeah.
And so in my head, that's who I see as Hercule Poirot, is David Suchet, because that's what I grew up with. So my relationship with Whodunits is it's just baked into my DNA. It is just, I love them. I love the format of them. I love great ones. I love terrible ones. And I'm always looking for a good new one. The only issue I have as a storyteller is that usually a good whodunit doesn't always play again as well the second time. Like once you know this,
doesn't have that repeatability factor where
you start to see how the screenwriter was misdirecting you deliberately and showing you things that weren't necessarily important to keep you wondering who it is. So most whodunits usually are only good once through, whereas occasionally like the greats, like a lot of Agatha Christie stuff really holds up over time to infinite rewatches.
I think it's one of the hardest. They're one of the hardest things to write. And I wrote a whodunit once, which wasn't a murder mystery, but it was sort of like an unmasking of. It was sort of taking a superhero concept and putting you in the shoes of the Lois Lane character and her not knowing who this savior was and having to sort of follow the clues and unmask them. So for the first time, we were unaware of who that person would be. And I found it so difficult to sort of write red herrings that still managed to move the story forward or to progress the character where it didn't feel like this was all dead space, and that it actually felt like, even though she's going down this tact and this is not the person, and she discovers at some point that person isn't who she's looking for, that she's still grown from that experience. And it made me really respect a lot of those procedural TV shows where they just churn that out week after week after week. And it's like, that is hard stuff to write. It's probably the hardest stuff to write.
It can be, yeah. Because, I mean, especially, like, it's one of those things where it depends on what kind of writer you are. Because, of course, there's two major types of writers. There's planners and pantsers. You have your people that completely outline beforehand and know where you're going. And then the people that just kind of, like Stephen King, who just sit down with an idea and write. And then, have to go back.
Say that again, planners or pantsers?
Yeah. Planners and pantsers. So you've got the people who are planning and the people who are flying by the seat of their pants.
Oh, I get you.
Yeah, Stephen King is that writer.
He is. And the thing is it doesn't, like, people are like, what's the best way to do it? And it's like, whatever way gets words on the pages for you, because everybody's brain works differently. And it takes
I always get that sense with King as well, where I feel like I'm sensing this is the moment where he got slightly bored of the story and he was already thinking about the next one, because it just starts to drift towards some sort of conclusion. And the story stops.
He's said openly. In fact, he says in his book on writing, they don't pay you to they pay you to finish. He has that point where he's always like, I just have to finish this and turn this in, and that's usually where he stops.
Make it perfect.
Yeah, and whereas if you have plenty of time, if you're not under contract for stuff, it usually takes about the same amount of time, because you can either spend a lot of time planning it out and then it kind of flows because you know where everything goes, or you find where it goes and then you've got to go back and rewrite to make your ending work, because it's not always going to work the way you put it down on the page. So it takes roughly the same amount of time to do that. But with a whodunit, you pretty much have to be a planner. You can't really pants a whodunit. You have to know who it is at the end. And if you are typically somebody who likes to pants it and just find the excitement of writing and the discovery in the act of sitting at your keyboard, it can be really hard, because it's like, oh God, I've got to now fill in all this space. I already know who the killer is, so there's nothing exciting left for me as a writer. Now I just have to pull all these tricks, and sometimes you feel like a fraud. You feel like the audience looks at you like a wizard, and you're just a stage magician doing little tricks of magic and misdirection, and it can be hard. You can feel very fraudulent doing it.
When I was trying to think about sort of ones that pull it off successfully, what I don't like are the whodunits where once the protagonist has deduced who the killer was, or who the person that perpetrated whatever crime is going on in the story, they sort of reveal stuff that we weren't privy to in the story, where it's like they will expand the scene. So you're getting to see moments that weren't shown. And I always feel like that's a bit of a cheat. Whereas stuff like The Sixth Sense, where they show you everything that you've already seen, but from the perspective where you're at in the story, with the information that you have at that point, you're seeing the scenes differently. And that, to me, feels like that's a magic trick, where it's a beautiful reveal rather than it feeling like a con job or a cheat.
Whodunits aren't like, my comfort food. Like you were saying, I love the way you described it, that, you devoured it all because it was your dad's favorite genre. But for me, we were getting the same stuff over here, but those programs were invariably on a Sunday afternoon. And the association was school was happening the next day. So it kind of filled me with dread. What I love about those British BBC ones as well is that they drape this murder, they drape the taking of life in this warm, cozy blanket, and it makes you feel fuzzy and warm. And I think it's so contradictory. It's hilarious. But on revisiting some of my favourite whodunits and ones that I didn't really like, my favourite whodunits are actually films and stories that aren't really about the crime or the motives for the crime. It's the ones that I can revisit over and over again are the stories that actually are about something totally different, something totally else. The subtext of the actual story, and the whodunit is just a device to get us, to take these characters on a journey.
So this is where it gets a bit nebulous, because there are some films which could be classified as a whodunit, and but also that's not what they're being sold on. That's not sort of the thing, the draw that people are watching the film for, like Scream, for example.
What's your favourite scary movie?
That's a whodunit where they reveal who the killer is, but I think it's missing that one thing that sort of puts it squarely in that category, which is that you don't have the protagonist of that story sleuthing, deducing, trying to solve the crime. It's just that she's unaware of who is perpetrating these acts against her until it's revealed at the end. So it's like it's missing that key thing, I think, that makes a whodunit, which is the investigation part.
I'm afraid that was a wrong answer.
That's actually that's an answer that I've given multiple times, because there's a big argument in the horror community as to what the difference is between a horror and a thriller. And there are people who try to use thriller as kind of like the phrase elevated genre, where it's like, oh, horror is, cheap, whereas a thriller is a quality Hollywood horror movie.
I remember that they tried to sell Scream as a thriller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there was that they wanted to put it in the class with, Silence of the Lambs. And my answer has always been, I think that the chief difference between what we constitute as a thriller and what we constitute as a horror film is the POV of the protagonist. If the protagonist is in the victim class, then it's a horror movie. If the protagonist is an investigator investigating violence against other people, that's a thriller. And I think that's kind of that line between a whodunit is that, we're usually, a great whodunit. When we think of whodunits, especially in the phrase whodunit, we are thinking of Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple coming in, Angela Lansbury.
We're in the position of the detective. Yeah. We're like, we're trying to figure it out with them.
Yeah, we are coming in and we're interviewing the victims. We're interviewing the people, the suspects. That's the POV of that. Whereas, Scream isn't told from the point of view of a police chief who has kids turning up dead and has to find out who this killer is.
Yeah.
It's told from the point of view of a high school girl who could be one of the victims. And that's where I think we draw the line between what constitutes as horror and what constitutes whodunit.
So here's a question for you guys, because I was asking some of my friends, what their favorites were. And one that came up, which it didn't occur to me until he said it. This is Kieran Foy, by the way, who did your sequel, did Sinister 2. He said The Fugitive. I was like, I guess that the TV show was definitely a whodunit.
The movie was too. Who killed his wife? And he breaks out of prison to find out who killed his wife. He's not a standard detective, which is what makes that such an exciting version of a whodunit.
But then it's lacking that ensemble factor.
The ensemble is the thing that's in my head. It's like an ensemble of like big named actors in a location. There's a crime and there's detective and there's a reveal, and they all have motives. And I suppose that's the kind of like the basement level kind of like, for me, that's how I define a whodunit, or how I try to narrow down my pick a little bit.
Yeah, there's a couple. I was going to bring this up myself because there's a couple that, because I just decided, I was like, okay, so what is exactly constituted as a whodunit?
Hit me.
And when I Googled it, what came up is a couple things that I would not have put in the category, but then thinking about it, Primal Fear. Primal Fear's a whodunit.
Oh, with Richard Gere and
Edward Norton.
Edward Norton, yeah.
Richard Gere.
I speak, you do not speak. Your job is just to sit there and look innocent.
Well, I am innocent.
That's it. That's exactly how I want you to look. Can you remember that? Look in the mirror if you have to.
Even when the headline is murder.
There was someone else in that room.
It was the third person.
Yeah, but that abs like, did this person commit the crime or did they not? And there's a whole subgenre of that kind of thriller
like
from the late
for the
80s, early
prosecution.
90s, like Presumed Innocent. With Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Then you've got The Usual Suspects. Is The Usual Suspects a whodunit?
Usually, when there is a crime, there is a motive.
I want to know why. 27 men died on that pier for what looks to be $91 million worth of dope that wasn't there.
Usually, when there is a lineup, there's only one real suspect.
This whole thing was a shakedown. And there's no way they'd line 5 felons in the same room.
But this is not the usual crime. This is not the usual motive.
He was in the harbor killing many men.
Kaiser Soze!
He saw Kaiser Soze.
And these are not the usual suspects.
Like, who is Kaiser Soze is a very real question in that movie. And Kaiser Soze is the one that puts these people in this position. Is it a whodunit or isn't it?
I think that film is an entire cheat. It's a very stylish film. It's a very, slick and compelling film. But the reveal at the end of that film is the equivalent of, and then they woke up and it was all a dream. So I even as a teenager, I had my arms crossed going, that's bullshit. I don't buy it. But we don't even know how many of those characters are real. It's like it's all a fantasy. What was that film that came out in the early 2000s? Identity.
Mm-hmm.
John Cusack.
Yeah, that felt like, this is a cracking whodunit. And then the reveal at the end of this, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's revealed that all the characters are, they're split personalities within this character who's in a psychiatric hospital.
and he's killing off all of his own. He's killing off all of his own multiple personalities.
Yeah, and it was like, okay, that's an interesting twist, but yeah, it that one as well felt like a little bit of a cheat, where it felt like, did you start that? Did you plant that or pants that?
Right.
Oh, that's definitely played. Like, it's funny because that movie came out shortly after Adaptation, and one of the big running gags is Adaptation is this screenplay that his twin brother has written that Hollywood just loves called 3.
Okay, there's a serial killer, right? Well, no, wait, and he's being hunted by a cop, and he's taunting the cop, right? Sending clues who his next victim is. He's already holding her hostage in his creepy basement. So the cop gets obsessed with figuring out her identity, and in the process, falls in love with her, even though he's never even met her. She becomes like the unattainable, like the Holy Grail. It's a little obvious, don't you think? Okay, but here's the twist. We find out that the killer really suffers from multiple personality disorder, right? See, he's actually really the cop and the girl. All of them are him. Isn't that fucked up? The only idea more overused than serial killers is multiple personality. On top of that, you explore the notion that cop and criminal are really two aspects of the same person. See every cop movie ever made for other examples of this. Mom called it psychologically taught. The other thing is, there's no way to write this. Did you consider that? I mean, how could you have somebody held prisoner in a basement and working in a police station at the same time? Trick photography. Okay, that's not what I'm asking. Listen closely. What I'm asking is, in the reality of this movie, where there's only one character, right? Okay? How could you... What exactly would... I agree with Mom. Very taut. Sybil meets, I don't know, Dress to Kill. Cool. I really like Dress to Kill. Until the third act denouement. That's not how it's pronounced.
And then Identity came out, and all the people in the critic community were like, man, that's literally 3. Like, literally, Shirley Kaufman was just making fun of this movie.
You're so right. I remember being in the cinema, and this is the type of film that Adaptation is taking the piss out of. Mm-hmm. Oh man, can I share with you, because I went, I put a lot in put in homework and watching.
You went on a crusade.
I went on a crusade to try and fill in some blanks, right? And I said I was going to try and fill in some slightly esoteric picks, and they, in my opinion, weren't totally successful. But I think I should mention one in particular, or two in particular. One being Eugene Levy's only directorial feature film, which was a whodunit called Once Upon a Crime, and it has a cracking class. Came out in 92. It's got Sybil Shepherd, John Candy, Jim Belushi, Richard Lewis, Sean Young.
Wanted, an unemployed actor.
My name, Balboa, Rocky Balboa.
A compulsive gambler.
This is my night. I'm rolling like a hunchback doing somersaults. Yes!
An exotic tourist.
I feel like a fugitive. It's like quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink.
An ugly American.
Call this a police car? I had a boiler removed from my ass bigger than this.
A pretty American.
East Coast.
Yes, New Jersey.
I'm so sorry.
An irresistible charmer.
From the moment I first saw you, the light shimmering off your safety deposit box.
A countess.
But if the police investigate, they'll discover it wasn't you I was in bed with.
An inspector to catch the killer.
Lives are at the stake.
I'll do anything you ask. Anything you want. Foreplay.
Pitiful lives, but lives nevertheless.
And it's like it's a whodunit where a bunch of Americans end up in Monte Carlo, and a very wealthy person is dead, and they have a dog, and they're all getting accused of the crime, and nobody really knows what's going on. And
is it a murder? There's a murder.
It's a murder. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a murder. Yeah, there's a murder, and they all got accused by the local. And there's a local police. Like there is a local French detective in the guise of French Poirot type of guys, and it just broke my heart because I wanted it to be good because I love Eugene Levy, and it just didn't land for me. But still, it was a lovely logic to see. The other one that I watched, filling a gap, which was a really curious one. It was a box office bomb. It was panned at the time, but it's Radioland Murders.
Can you see? You're mad!
Mad, you say? I'm the one with the branding iron, and you're the one with the soft
is a land of imagination.
Now talk! I don't have time to be talked out of divorcing you.
40 seconds to air it.
I'll snap without you. Penny, I could do something completely crackers.
But tonight, between the fun and the fantasy...
We don't have a script.
And no director.
Someone is adding a mystery.
I have a bad feeling about this.
That isn't in the script.
I'll be glad when you...
Yeah, it's a real good one.
I've not seen that either.
It's well worth a watch. It came out and it was originally, so it's George Lucas's brainchild. He came up with it like right after American Graffiti, and so this is back in the early 70s when he was when he was talking to Universal about these different projects, and Universal were kind of going, "Oh yeah, what have you got next?" And they said, "Well, I've got this Agatha Christie's type story set in a new radio station, or I've got this space story." And so the space story ended up being Star Wars, and Radioland Murders was stuck in development hell for nearly 2 decades until it came out. And the result,
Mel Smith directed it.
Yeah, Mel Smith directed it, and it is actually very nicely made. It's stylishly made. Has a fantastic cast. Mary Stuart Masterson is the lead. There's Stephen Tobolowsky. There's Jeekers. I'm sorry, all the names are escaping.
Ned Beatty, Michael McKean, Jeffrey Tambor, Christopher Lloyd.
Great cast.
I'm looking on Rotten Tomatoes here, and it is that's a low score. Even though Rotten Tomatoes
doesn't matter. It's
really matter.
Actually, if anyone's curious about anything that's came out of the Lucasfilm stable and they haven't seen Radioland Murders, I would recommend you watching it because it is stylishly made and it is actually fun. It's very ridiculous and really silly, but it is actually kind of fun.
Universal Pictures and George Lucas invite you to tune in to WBN live while it still is. Radioland Murders, directed by Mel Smith.
I suppose I can tell you some of the ones that I went on a journey to sort of plug gaps in, and I had a lot to get through because I realised when I started to look up like classic whodunits, it was going way back to the 40s, obviously, and there was a lot I hadn't seen, but one that immediately sort of landed with me, and I thought that's a cracking film, is Laura, the Otto Preminger one.
I remember when Laura bought these glasses, she loved them.
I was groping for some way to keep Laura's name out of it.
He was always quick to seize upon anything that would improve her mind or her appearance. Laura had innate breeding. I selected a more attractive hairdress for her. I taught her what clothes were more becoming to her. Through me, she met everyone. Men admired her. Women envied her.
It's got another thing which I think is indicative of a lot of whodunits, which is that the murder happens off screen, or we're not present for the murder, or for enough of the murder to be able to get a handle on who perpetrated it. And it follows a detective who comes in, and for much of the story, he is investigating the boyfriend, he's investigating the people that she worked with, he's investigating her lover-to-be, the person that she was betrothed to, and there's a painting of Laura that's in her apartment where he's spending most of his time, and he's slightly falling in love with the painting until twist after twist after twist after twist happens, and each one got me. So I watched Laura after I'd watched The Big Sleep, which felt much more of a sort of a film noir, like hard-boiled classic Bogart detective story, and then to get into Laura, it was like, oh no, this is a whodunit. The Big Sleep is it's a crime story, but it doesn't feel like what you'd expect of a classic whodunit. So Laura, have you seen that or?
No, man, that's going on my watch list.
No,
you've got to watch it.
That's one of those that has been a hole in my thing for a long time.
It was for me as well, and I just. I dug into it. I loved it. But I'll spit out some titles here because I was like going through so many. So I went back and I watched.
You actually did watch a huge amount this past weekend.
I did, and I was like, I've got to sort of like. The problem is that when you're talking about whodunits, they're all sort of enjoyable and they've all got their twists and their turns. But trying to land on what a great scene is, you're really just coming down to the reveals. Like what are the moments where the killer is unmasked. Or the perpetrator is discovered. So I found it hard in that respect to sort of zero in on the scene. But I went back and I watched Manhattan Murder Mystery.
Helen, why don't you come in for a second and have a drink with us?
Oh! Couldn't you keep the conversation going a little longer in there? This guy showed me his stamp collection one more time.
You know, they're looking forward to their anniversary.
She had a heart attack. She's dead.
Never once mentioned that she had a heart condition.
Maybe this guy killed her, you know? Like he's got like a young Tootsie stash.
No. This guy gets his jollies from licking the back of postage stamps.
Which I thought had a great vibe. Could I pick out a great scene from it? I don't know, but it's just it's the whole thing. It's just got a lovely cozy vibe to it.
Yeah, can I jump in there before you move on from that?
Go on.
Because I rewatched Manhattan Murder Mystery, and I remember it actually was the film. I watched it when it came out back in the 90s, and it was the film that made me want to live in New York. It was that there was a vibe that it captured in more than any other film.
Those cramped apartments.
It was the cramped, but there was the cramped apartments that basically when you walked out of them, you were in New York. You could go to a show, you could go to a basketball game, or you could go to there was just life. It was just absolutely happening.
Wasn't there?
Around
There's a scene where Diane Keaton can't sleep. This is the Woody Allen film that he made in the 90s. Diane Keaton can't sleep. She's obsessed with trying to figure out what's happened to her neighbour. Her neighbour has supposedly dropped dead, and they just had a dinner with them, and it doesn't add up to her. And she's sort of becoming more and more fixated on trying to solve what happened to the wife of the guys on the same floor as her. And but there's that moment in it where it's like 2:00 in the morning, and she thinks, I'll just call up Angelica Houston and what's this guy? The guy from MASH,
Alan Alda.
Alan Alda, and they just go for dinner at like 2:00 in the morning, and it's like, that's New York for you.
I'll pick a great scene from that. It's when she breaks into her neighbour's apartment. And she's poking around, and she picks up the phone, and she rings Alan Alda to say, I'm in his apartment, and he's like, what are you doing? Just get out. And what happens? But the neighbour comes in, and it's a small pokey apartment, so there's real tension. This is a Woody Allen film. There's real tension where she's just scuttling around like one corner while the owner is there, and she hides under a bed, and oh my god, like I was digging my nails into the chair watching it for this type of film. It's a cracker. It's really good.
Hello.
Ted, I'm in his apartment. The urn is missing. It's gone. Yeah, I think it might have been. He had the satchel last night. He was carrying this bag, and I think that might have been what he had in his satchel.
Listen, I'd get out of there right away if I were you. No. Go. We'll talk more from your apartment.
He's not going snorkeling with his brother. He's got 2 tickets to Paris, and he's got reservations at the George Sank Hotel with a woman named Helen Moss.
I gotta say, just as a quick aside, saying that a Woody Allen movie made you want to move to New York is like if I said a Richard Curtis movie made me want to move to London.
Oh God!
It's like, well, I mean, technically they shot it in New York, but that's not what New York. That's not the New York I know.
I certainly. It was when I rewatched it last weekend. I realized it was a very romanticized version of New York that I fell in love with.
Oh yeah,
It's probably a rich person's version of New York where you can just
those tiny apartments are millions. I'd assume,
to own them. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's an expensive place even when you're. It's an expensive, weird place even when you're wealthy. It is New York is its own thing that everybody that lives in New York hates it and thinks it's the greatest city on earth. It is. It is.
That's what they're telling you. That's what they're telling themselves.
Yes.
It just feels like it. To me, it just seems like it's Twitter, the city where it just never stops and everybody is like, monologuing all over the place.
When I made Sinister, I was living in New York for a few months, and I got the perfect New York experience. I'm walking down the road and somebody is turning and there's a guy jackhammering, and the guy in the car starts screaming at the guy jackhammering, and the guy jackhammering stops jackhammering for a second, goes, "Hey, I'm working here." And I was like, it's real. It's really, it was like the first time I was on the last train out of Waterloo, and some guy's wobbling around and looks at someone, and someone goes, "Oi, mate, who you looking at?" And it's like, oh my God, I'm going to watch a real fight.
They actually speak like that.
Yeah. That's what I want to go. That's why I love New York. Like, it's crazy. It is crazy, and crazy shit happens. Fantastic.
I'll tell you some more. Do you know what I just watched? Actually, it's one of the most recent ones. Like Knives Out, I think everyone has seen that, and that's a cracking one where it feels like that's telling you a story. It's not just plot. The plot is an artifice to tell you a story that is quite earnest, and it's got that lovely final image to it where you feel like, oh yeah, we got 2 for 1 here. We got a lovely story about the changing face of America and sort of the politics and the confusion that's going on at the moment, but also this classic whodunit where you couldn't tell who was responsible and why.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to request that you all stay until the investigation is completed.
What? Can we ask why? Has something changed?
No.
No, it hasn't changed, or no, we can't ask.
I'm gonna live till I die.
You think one of his family was killed? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm gonna take
You all love twisting the knife into one another.
Up your ass.
Oh, very nice.
Matter of fact,
Oh my God.
eat shit. How's that? Eat shit. Eat shit. Eat shit.
Smug smile.
Definitely eat shit.
But the one that I saw just recently, which just came out last year. Oh, did it come out last year or did it come out this year? Thanks to the pandemic, I don't know what the difference between 2020 and 2021. It was Kid Detective.
So what can I help you with?
Somebody murdered my boyfriend.
Seriously?
Pretty seriously. He was stabbed 17 times.
Is it possible he was involved in drugs?
No, he would never do drugs.
Gambling?
No, he would never gamble.
Demon worship?
No, he would never worship a demon.
Oh, I've heard about this. Tell me more.
It's really good. It's Adam Brody he's sort of he's an arrested. How would you put it? He's like a young adult. He's not grown up, and he was famous for being an oddity within his community, where he was like a kid detective. He had a treehouse sort of office, and he would solve missing cats and all that kind of things. And he's never sort of developed beyond that. Right. And he's sort of haunted by one of his friends who was kidnapped and killed, and there's another murder that takes place, and he's brought in to try and help the girlfriend of the guy that's gone missing to figure out what happened. And it's really sardonic and it's really glib, but it's not spoofy, and it's not sort of a pastiche on the genre. It's having fun within it, but it really does. It's quite affecting, and just the tone of it was so refreshing. It just felt like this is a great little film. So I would recommend for those out there who haven't tracked down Kid Detective. It's really new. I think, as I say, it just came out a few months ago. It's brilliant. It's worth watching.
Class. Definitely going to watch that.
I also watched The Last of Sheila for the first time.
That was on my list. Last of Sheila is one of those relative unknowns that got dug up by some film geeks recently. And man, not only is that an incredible cast, but what a wonderfully dark little whodunit.
Yeah, I mean, that one starts with the murder. Mm-hmm. So you don't really have that in a lot of them.
So tell me more, give us more.
It's written by Anthony Perkins and
Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah, Stephen. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was the last of Sheila. That was what they thought anyway. Until they started playing Sheila's game. Tom thought he could beat the game. Christine played for the prize. Clinton was the master of the game. Lee played because she had to. Philip knew too much about the game.
I was surprised. Well, I was trying to figure out why Anthony Perkins didn't star in it, because it feels like there's a few roles within that film that are tailor-made for him, but apparently he was off shooting something else at the time. So, but it's a cracking little murder mystery. It takes place on a yacht called The Last of Sheila. Wow. And it's a mystery writer whose wife has been killed, and there's sort of he's trying to expose them, I think, for their hypocrisy and their connections to what went down.
Yeah, he's playing games. He's invited them all for a weekend on the yacht, and they're playing games, but all the games are meant to expose who the killer is. And so we are wondering who the killer is this entire time, while these bizarre games are being played. And the cast it's James Coburn, Richard Benjamin, James Mason, Diane Cannon, Ian McShane, Raquel Welch. And everybody is.
It's stacked.
So good.
Tom, where's the ice pick? What? I said, where's the bloody ice pick?
That's fantastic. I have to watch that. So I've now got 4 films on my watch list just from this.
Yeah.
Do you have any more, or should we dig into Cargill's, or do you have any more you want to mention?
There's a few others, and if any of them sort of like vibe with you guys, you can sort of jump in. I watched Clute. I don't know whether I would classify Clute as a whodunit, in that it isn't that ensemble thing. It really is about her character, and sort of the crime that she's caught up in. It's very 70s. Mm-hmm. It feels a lot more progressive and modern than it is. I think it's 1971, it came out. But you can see why that film kicked up a fuss back then. Just for the character alone that she was portraying. She's playing a call girl.
Donald Sutherland and
Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
That's one we're watching. The Long Goodbye as well.
Oh, yes.
Hey, Mrs. Wade!
It's got such great style, and Elliot Gould is he's got a really interesting take on that classic detective, where he's much more neurotic and sort of affected and in his own head and muttering to himself and sort of not really aware or he's not really present within the world that he's in.
All right, saying that's Altman, isn't it? Robert Altman.
Yeah, it does this genius thing where, because it's these old Dashiell Hammett. It's one of the old Dashiell Hammett novels, and so he's taking the internal dialogue that you have, because Dashiell Hammett had a very specific style, and all the books are narrated and explaining these things. So Altman takes that and takes a bunch of his best kind of lines and thoughts from his head, and he just has him mumble them. And
stream of consciousness type thing.
Yeah, and so he's just kind of mumbling his various thoughts, and people are like, "What? Huh?" And there's nothing. I love The Long Goodbye.
It's also L.A. in that period is so sort of seductive on screen. It just looks like a thriving, exciting place to be, where it doesn't feel so corporate, even though I'm sure it was. But it just feels a bit more dingy, a bit more like New York, or how we would perceive New York.
It's too late to try when I missed hello.
I watched a lot of other ones that I didn't really connect with, and I don't really like to sort of talk about films that I didn't like, but I didn't really get on with Blowout. I realised that I had only ever seen the first half of Blowout. Brian De Palma, how dare you?
Unfortunately, Cargill, I'm not the greatest fan of Brian De Palma. His films just don't gel with me, and so I'm feigning surprise.
I'm not a huge De Palma fan either, but it's very weird in the film community to find people who don't like De Palma. Like we are like on a small
because
island.
He is so cinema. It's like it's all there on screen. It's
but
like
he's also his movies are very kind of sleazy in a way that is not fun to revisit or watch. And it's not that I dislike De Palma. There's a number of great De Palma films. I love Phantom of the Paradise. Untouchables is pretty fucking rad. But then you get stuff like Blowout, and it's love it or don't. And it's in that period where he really was like, oh, hey, it's the 80s, so we could do these sexy thrillers, but we can do the stuff we weren't able to do on film before. And as a result, you get something that's a little skeezy.
It gets too bombastic. It's also that thing where I felt like that Nancy Allen's character should be the protagonist of that story, but she's not. And therefore, because the story is pulling in her direction so much, her character has to be too stupid to exist within the story itself. So I know they may have had conversations which is like, let's play her like a Marilyn Monroe type and put her in, Bronx accent or whatever accent she's putting on. But she's so dumb and irritating, and it just feels slightly misogynistic, the approach they took to that character.
What? A De Palma film slightly misogynistic?
Yeah. But it starts off, great fun, and you think, oh, I'm into this. And yeah, I know it's got some fantastic camera moves. The 360 pan where John Travolta realizes that the powers that be have come in and they've wiped all his audio equipment. But I don't know. As it went along and it got further and further into it and it became this sort of protracted chase sequence with John Lithgow and what have you, I was like, I'm just not into this. And this bombastic score that felt like it had been snatched from pornos and Italian melodramas and it was all mushed together, and I was like, yeah, I'm okay not putting this on my list and not mentioning it on the podcast. So I'm glad that I
burned 5 minutes talking about it. It's good to get it off your chest, Kevin.
There was also Arsenic and Old Lace was recommended to me as one that people absolutely adore and love, and it was just too screamy for me and too manic, so I didn't finish it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. What about? Will we throw it off the Cargill now and see if there's any ones that he?
We will.
Do you have more to say, Kevin?
I've got loads more to say, but I'm talking too much. So let's hear from Cargill.
Let's get Cargill talking about a few of his picks.
Well, yeah. So I picked a myriad of different ones because there's so many. There's so many I like, and there's ones that I thought were both kind of indicative of exactly what we're talking about, and then ones that kind of aren't. Right, I guess to go back the furthest, one that me and my wife watch almost annually is The Thin Man.
Where is he? What happened, Nick? What do you want blasted?
Man's just been killed. I think you boys better get out of here before the police arrive.
Grab your kids. Holy screw! More!
What happened?
If there were any reasonable chance for me to help you, it'd be different. But during this quiet little weekend in the country, my family's been threatened. I've had a knife thrown at me, I've been shot at, and I've been suspected of murder. From now on, this is your case. You handle it. I'm going back to New York and forget it. Come on, Mom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, the Thin Man movies, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, was a series back in the 30s. Post-Prohibition, in which it's a delightful drunken couple, one of whom is a detective, and they end up solving murders. And it is just a delightful little romp. I just love it so much. I love Nick and Nora. They are the epitome of what everybody kind of wants to be as a couple. They are very much in love. They are very funny and witty, and they are both drunk most of the time. And
that sounds like, my kind of movie.
I got rid of all those reporters.
What'd you tell them?
Told them we were out of scotch.
What a gruesome thought.
Another one of the kind of classics is in terms of the Hercule Poirot, of the Agatha Christie's. I love Evil Under the Sun.
I don't know that either.
I don't know this. What is this?
This is Peter.
Hit us with some knowledge.
It is Peter Ustinov as Hercule Poirot. He is on vacation at a lovely island resort, kind of recovering from having just solved a huge murder. He is very famous, and then someone is killed. And it's got James Mason again, Maggie Smith, Roddy McDowell's in it, Diana Rigg. And it's just a delightful, cool, fun. It's one of the things I like about it is Peter Ustinov plays one of the funnier versions of Hercule Poirot. It's very delightful. And so this movie allows itself to have fun. So you talk about those kind of Sunday afternoon, like just warm comfort blankets of a murder mystery. That's this one. It's really good.
I do not think that formal introductions are necessary. Poirot. Hercule Poirot. There are those who have called me the greatest detective of all time, a description with which I find it difficult to quarrel. But even a great detective must at times recharge the little grey cells. And I recently took my vacation on an Adriatic island so remote as to be unknown even to the guide Michelin.
To go in an opposite direction, something I discovered just earlier this year that a friend shared with me is a 1950 film that you can't get here in the States. It's called Girl with Hyacinths.
Never heard of it.
No.
I had never heard of it.
I was hoping I could say, it's one of my favorites.
I'm writing this down. Go on.
No. This is Hasse Ekman. It is a Swedish film from 1950, and it is about a writer whose neighbor kills herself. She commits suicide. and writes him a letter that the police bring over that says, "Hey, I'm your neighbor. We don't know each other. I'm very sorry, but I'm declaring you the executor of my estate. Keep anything you want, sell the rest. Just make sure my stuff gets taken care of." He becomes obsessed with this girl and goes around, and the whodunit is, who drove this woman to commit suicide? And so he goes and starts interviewing her lovers, and interviewing the people who knew her and putting the mystery together. And it is, by the time you get to the end of the movie, it is such a profound, what I highly recommend is, if you can track down Girl with Hyacinths, first of all, watch it because it is brilliant. Secondly, do not Wikipedia it. It is one of those things that everybody feels they need to put something important in the opening paragraph that will give away the ending. And you don't, you want to feel that and experience that ending the first time. It is a really just incredible movie. I showed it to Scott. Derrickson, my writing partner and director. It was one of those movies he was reeling for days. And at first he was like, "I'm so shocked you brought this to me. You're not the type of, you're the person who brings me like 70s slasher movies and 80s science fiction films. You don't bring me 1950s Swedish, character pieces." But then as he kind of broke it down, he's like, "No, this is totally Cargill's jam. Like, this is really," and he just, like, I remember being on set, cause we watched it while we were shooting our recent movie. And like 3 days later, he just looked at me and goes, "I can't get this movie out of my head, man. Like, this movie was so good."
Oh, wow.
So it is one of the, I had never seen a whodunit as who drove this person to suicide.
So before you see The Black Phone, make sure you see Girl with Hyacinths.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that cross-pollination, though. That's the great thing about creativity, is like, it can be one thing that pings off into another thing, and films create other films.
Yeah, I was literally talking about that today because online, because every successful filmmaker I know has a section of their taste that film elite, that cineasts would consider questionable. Like Ryan Johnson, who I'm about to talk about again. Ryan Johnson is obsessed with procedurals, like all of them. Not just like, he's not like one of those who's like, no, I watch all the best ones, and like he has 12 copies of Girl with Hyacinth on Criterion Blu-ray. No, he, like, if any procedural is on, he's talked about it openly. Like, if he's flipping channels and he comes across CSI, it doesn't matter if he's watched it before, he'll watch it again. He just loves the concept of the procedural. And I love that the puzzles, I suppose. It's like that you're working your brain, and you're also getting to see, actual meaty scenes be played out. But it's that obsession with that questionable taste, that thing that we love that we don't necessarily talk about. I know, I won't name a name, but I know an Oscar-winning filmmaker who thinks the funniest person on the planet is Adam Sandler. And he will watch, like, when he goes home from making his Oscar, quality films, he goes and smokes a bowl and watches some Adam Sandler movies. And it's that passion for that oddball stuff, that side stuff, that drives the engine that drives us to want to make the stuff that we do make, and that we'll borrow from in little bits and pieces, while not imitating. You'd never guess that the person that made this Academy Award nominated film also turned around and loves Little Nicky. Like, that's just not a thought that crosses your mind. But then you see the little germinations in the jokes that you see in that movie, and you go, "Oh, here's somebody who really does know how to laugh and does appreciate humor." But
and like, that Oscar-winning filmmaker is Steven Spielberg.
No, but no, it's even more a feat than that. Like, but like Ryan, the next film I want to talk about is Ryan's first movie, Brick.
Yes, yeah.
Brendan?
Emily?
I really screwed up.
Screwed up how?
The brick.
What?
I didn't know it was bad, but the pin's on it now. You gotta help me.
Slow down now. This isn't good. No. Emily said words I didn't know. Tell me if they catch.
Brick? No.
Tug?
Tug might be a drink, like milk and vodka.
Pin?
You know the kingpin.
Dope runner, right?
Big time. What are you gonna do?
She asked for my help. I just want to know she's okay.
So what's first?
I'm gonna start shaking things up.
The high school set, Dashiell Hammett style story, where that's his passions coming out to play. And he wrote this really cool movie about a kid detective of sorts, a guy who's trying to solve the murder of this girl from his school.
For some reason, I always remember that film as being in black and white. It just has a black and white vibe to it, even though it's not. And every time it flashes back up again, I'm like, oh, it's in colour. I just don't remember the colours in the film. It just felt very, it just felt like a throwback.
Well, it's very muted. Like his color palette in that movie is not like vibrant. It is a very muted kind of a film. It's very of its age. It's very 2004. That was kind
Which was a great year. A great era, I think, the early 2000s.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, there's not much more to say.
That's the second Whodunit that he's done. He's done Brick, and he also did Knives Out.
Well, and a third one. He's going to do a sequel to Knives Out for.
He's doing 2 sequels. Netflix gave him like $400 million to make 2 Knives Out.
Swords drawn. That'll be the next one.
Because there's a lot of special effects sequences in these Agatha Christie type stories.
Well, I mean, no. I mean, the key to the key to all that money is to get the big names. That's where you bring in you get your A-list cast. So that's what's really exciting about that is that these are like and in true fashion, he just shot it in Greece. In the pandemic, he shot an A-list. In fact, that was one of my favorite jokes I've seen in the last year. Was there were so many announcements of who the cast was in Knives Out. Somebody said, "If you are in line to be cast in Knives Out too, stay in line."
I saw that tweet. I can't remember who she was that wrote it. It was very funny.
Yeah, that was just that made me laugh so hard. Because that's exactly what it felt like. It's like, no, everybody's going to get a chance to be in a Knives Out movie now.
I can't wait for that.
I think we're going to share picks, Cargill. I have a feeling you haven't mentioned a big one that is going to be my pick for best Whodunit. So I'm curious. Keep going.
Oh well, that was what I had on deck. Oh, I guess the one other I would mention that the spoof that I think is the best Whodunit spoof ever, Clue.
Yes. Oh, there you go. You've got a kindred spirit in Kevin here.
Every person in this room has the perfect motive.
Stand back!
For murder.
What do you mean? Murder.
But only one of these suspects is the murderer. Is it the timid Mr. Green?
Why are you screaming? Because I'm frightened of what? Screaming!
Or the militant Colonel Mustard?
If I was the killer, I would kill you next.
Huh?
Said half.
Mrs. White, who helped her husband on his way?
Well, it's a matter of life after death. Now that he's dead, I have a life.
Miss Scarlet, who's helped many men along the way?
Practice makes perfect. Huh.
Professor Plum, who's looking for a way?
I'm looking.
Mrs. Peacock?
I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here, but I am determined to enjoy myself.
Or did the butler do it?
No.
Paramount Pictures.
Yeah, I saw Clue in a theater, so I got to see it with a single ending.
Oh, okay.
Which ending did you see it with?
I saw it with the big, what's considered now the final ending, the real ending, according to the home video version of it.
The third one.
Yeah, the one where they're all responsible in one way, shape, or form. It's kind of the
which is the perfect ending, I think.
Murder on the Orient Express version, where it's everyone but one of the guys is actually a real detective. And in fact, I used to, for years when I worked at the video store, every day when I'd leave, I'd just smile and wave and go, I'm going to go home and sleep with my wife. and I found out
that is a great line to quote.
Except that no one on the crew actually had seen that movie and thought I was being weird. They had no idea I was quoting Clue every day on the way out from work. And so they just thought I was being creepy and bragging about the fact that I was going home to get laid. So when one of them watched Clue, they like passed it around to everyone else and they go, Cargill's doing a bit. He's been doing a bit this whole time.
That's fantastic.
You see, I would have mentioned Clue if I didn't mention. We had an episode on post-credit scenes.
Was it post-credit? Oh,
and so I decided to completely twist it and bend it to get me to talk about Clue, where I was like, the three endings that came after the two endings that came after the film had ended. I said, I'm going to pretend that these are post-credits and talk about Clue. So I didn't think of it for this episode, but I love that film. That's one of the few whodunits that you can watch over and over and over again, because it's a romp.
Yeah, no, it's very funny. It's one of those comedies that the comedy is timeless. It's clever. You're always, you're always laughing. It's so quotable. My wife loves to just every once in a while, she'll just be flames coming out of my face.
I believe that's the only ad-lib line in the whole movie.
Maybe it's a very clever script and it's very well done. And it's one of those things like, how do you adapt a board game and turn it into something on its own? And they really got it. And I would argue that that's kind of, that led to Jumanji, particularly the recent ones, which, the Jake Kasdan. Oh, wait, that's another one. I was going to mention Zero Effect, Jake Kasdan's first movie.
Oh, with Bill Pullman.
Yeah, with Bill Pullman as the detective and Ben Stiller as this lawyer working for him that does all the legwork for him. And it is the big thing about the lawyer is the detective is he's a complete shut-in, but he's a genius and he can figure out he can figure things out from where he is in his room often. But if he needs to go into the field, he goes out and he never is himself. He never goes as a detective. He's always pretending to be someone else because he's not comfortable in his own skin, but he's a brilliant detective otherwise. And it is one of the most interesting dysfunctional detective character stories I've ever seen. I rewatched it. We did it in our podcast recently and my cohort had never seen it. And he just instantly fell in love. And it is just such a cool, interesting story where what's interesting about this particular whodunit is you find out who did it 30 minutes into the movie, but now it's the why did they do it? Why did that character do this thing? Why are they blackmailing this person? Why is all this going on? And and you find out the entire mystery at the end and it all comes in and all the pieces were there and you're like, oh, this is what a great mystery and what a great character piece.
That completely went under the radar as well. It's a film that really no one really took any notice of. So I'm so glad you brought. I haven't thought about that film in 20 years.
It's worth revisiting.
You're probably the best. Excuse me. Excuse me. You are the best private investigator in the world.
2 shots, down she goes, execution style. Guess what the victim's name is?
Let me guess.
No, I don't mean really guess. There's no way you can actually guess.
Clarissa.
I'm being blackmailed, Mr. Arnold.
How desperate? Scale of 1 to 10. Bordering on manic.
I need the matter resolved.
Take me to the scene of the crime.
This is the thing where I had a pick. And then I changed my mind on the pick. And then as we were talking about the rules for what a whodunit is, I thought my pick doesn't fit and my backup doesn't fit. And I'm like, I've watched all these movies and I can't think of like a great scene from them. So I'm going to go back to what my original choice was going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm going
There are no rules. Go on.
Because I was originally going to go with Memento.
Oh.
Because Memento is, it's one of those scripts that even if I watched that film or one of those films, even if I watched it a dozen times and then I was told, okay, sit down now and transcribe that movie, write it from beginning to, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's such a masterful puzzle that gets unfolded in front of us. But it falls down on the ensemble aspect where it really is a crime story and it's just him investigating himself and he doesn't realize it. And there are great reveals, there are great turns within the story of there's a fantastic scene with Carrie-Anne Moss where she realizes she can manipulate this guy into offing her drug dealer boyfriend. So she winds him up to the point where he punches her. And then when he storms out, or she storms out, she comes back in and she pretends to be like, he's like, what happened to your face? And she's like, what do you think happened? He hit me. And we just watched the whole thing just play out in 2 minutes where she was telling him you're a reject and all this kind of thing. And I thought that's a good one to go with.
You sad freak. I can say whatever the fuck I want. And you won't remember. We'll still be best friends. Or maybe even lovers. I'll see you soon.
this down. Gotta write it down. Concentrate. Keep it in mind. Come on, I gotta find a pen. Gotta write this down. Exactly what happened. Gotta write down exactly what happened. Come on. I gotta find a pen. Jeez, come on. Come on, keep focused. What? Gotta keep mine. Find a pen. What happened?
What does it look like? He beat the shit out of me.
Who?
Fuck Leonard Dodd. Dodd beat the shit out of me.
But because it was my backup, I haven't watched Memento in about 15 years. So I just have this lingering memory of, I love that moment where it was revealed that the side story that he was telling about Sammy, the guy that was who had the same condition as him, and his wife started to doubt him, so she ended up having him over and over injected with insulin where he killed her. It was actually about himself. It was like, that was a great reveal. But because it was my backup, I haven't watched it in such a long time, so I'm not as on sure footing on the story as I'd like to be able to sort of like sell it to you. So I'm going to go back to my original pick.
Oh.
Which again, I don't think fits into the whodunit category, but it is, it's The Thing. And because The Thing is like 10 Little Indians.
Yeah.
And it's not a whodunit, it's who is it? And when I think about great whodunits, it's about the reveal. And that film, you've got sort of a shifting protagonist in that everybody is sort of investigating it at different stages and the information has been shared. We're obviously sticking with McCready's character. But you've got the Doc and you've got Jennings and all those guys, or Bennings. And I thought, yeah, there's a great moment in that where they're doing the blood serum test to basically reveal who the killer is in the room. And when you think of great whodunits, that's a cracker of a scene. But I realised that it's a monster movie, and if you were to tell people what The Thing is, they're not going to think whodunit.
No,
so,
man. As soon as you started putting it out there, put it out there, I just went, oh shit, that is such a whodunit. It really is. In my, you've got this an ensemble of characters. No,
so there's a fit. Can I go with it? We've got red herrings. So. We've got Mr. X. We've got reveals.
Interestingly enough, the film was originally written as an ensemble. It was not written with McCready as the main character. The first cut of the film didn't work. They went back and did 3 weeks of reshoots to restructure it to make McCready the protagonist. But initially it was structured as a whodunit where you were just watching this ensemble of characters and you had no idea who the killer was.
See, when you say that now, I really want to know, was McCready's introduction one of those reshoots where he's playing chess and he's, saying cheat and bitch and pouring the whiskey into the hard drive?
I'm pretty certain it is. I'm pretty certain.
Because that is such a lovely inversion of how the film ends, where he's outside the camp with Charles and he offers him the whiskey. Mm-hmm. And Charles drinks from it and he laughs. And it's like he's been playing chess this whole time. I know he realizes that Charles is just taking a drink from the whiskey, knowing that you're not meant to share any sort of, you're not meant to eat from the same cans or whatever they say. And because he's fearless about it, it's like, oh, I get it. You have nothing to fear because you're it.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, you've made me change my pick. And because you're bending the
okay,
rules
then
like
I'm going to go with what your pick originally was.
You changed my pick because I'm going to go with Alien, because it's an ensemble cast.
Fuck off. Now you're just taking the piss out of me.
It's not a whodunit, it's where the fuck is it,
Yeah.
But Cargill, usually the game comes down to this, that we have to put our hat on a particular post and say, this is my favourite whodunit scene or whodunit movie. What would yours be?
It's a toss-up, but I'm going to go with L.A. Confidential.
Oh, we were discussing this before we went on.
They were three cops who had nothing in common.
Freeze! Big B, what are you doing here? Hey, man, I'm keeping the streets safe, boys.
One would do anything to get ahead.
You're truly prepared to be despised within a department?
Yes, sir, I am.
One had his own brand of justice.
How's it going to look in your report?
It'll look like justice. That's what the man got.
And one loved the spotlight.
What exactly do you do on the show, Jack?
I teach Brett Chase how to walk and talk like a cop.
The Night Owl Massacre. This is a heinous crime that requires swift resolution. 6 victims. One of them, one of our own. Interrogations will be led by Lieutenant Edmund Exley.
I need some backup. Come on.
All right, college boy, I'll help.
Now, all of them are faced with solving one case.
Don't move! I want confessions, Edmund.
Oh, I'll break them, sir. These people are all...
Oh my God.
We were discussing this before we
Just
went
before you came on, I was talking to Joe Barton, a writer friend of mine who has written his own whodunits with Giri Haji and what have you. And I said, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to say. And he said, just go with LA Confidential. And I said, oh fuck, but I've not watched it in so long. I don't remember the scenes to be able to point out. And he went, well, that sounds like a you problem. So
tell us, why is LA Confidential your best whodunit?
You know, it really is one of those things that the character work in it is so powerful. And it has a character in it. Russell Crowe's cop wrestling with his inner rage and the fact that he's been used as this, tool of aggression. This, he's essentially what we would highlight as a bad cop. But he means well. Like, he's doing what he's doing for good reason. And, him bumping up against Guy Pearce. This is Edmund Exley, who's he's a good cop, but he is more, he's got his eye more on the prize of, climbing up the ranks and of politics. Yeah. And this juxtaposition between these two characters, who one is what we would think of as a good cop and one is what we think of as a bad cop, but their internal motivations are flipped.
Miss, I'm Lieutenant Exley. I'm sorry to have to ask you this. I need to know what time they left you.
Get her to the hospital.
I realize this is difficult.
Give your career a rest. Leave her alone.
A naked guy with a gun? You expect anyone to believe that?
Get the fuck away from me.
How's it gonna look in your report?
It'll look like justice. That's what the man got. Justice.
You don't know the meaning of the word, you ignorant bastard.
Yeah? Well, you think it means getting your picture in the paper. Why don't you go after criminals for a change instead of cops?
Stensland got what he deserved, and so will you.
And I love that the battle between the inner demons of those characters and the fact that everyone in this movie is, greatly flawed. Like, there is no one good, clean character in the entire movie. Nobody is pure.
Yeah.
Everybody is dirty. And that it plays with that classic era of what we think of in terms of the American whodunits. Like, you've got the British school of whodunits, which is the Agatha Christie, and then you've got the American whodunits, which is the Dashiell Hammett. And it is very much the Dashiell Hammett school. But it is taking that to the nth degree where it just kind of hits all those notes just right. And so many memorable performances, so many great turns. When you find out who it is, who the ultimate villain of it is, it kind of breaks your heart because it's somebody that you really, one of the few people you thought wasn't dirty in the movie is the dirtiest. And it just does all of that right. And it's one of those infinitely rewatchable, just great pieces of cinema that I think is going to go down in history as one of the best films of that era.
It gets better and better as each year, passes. It's a film that just ages better and better and better. Do you have a particular scene from that film that you really love?
I really like the scene where Edmund Exley dresses down Russell Crowe. Like, just that whole thing where it's really what I was just talking about, that juxtaposition of the two character motivations versus the character's actions. It's one of those things where you begin to feel for Russell Crowe because you just see him kind of as a thug along the way. And then you kind of hit this point where you're like, oh, I get this guy. I get what he's doing. I get this inner rage he has. I get how he uses it. He wants to be the good guy, and he's got this demon in him that won't let him be the good guy. And I just you see Edmund Exley go after him and dress him down as being a bad cop and, and being exactly what's wrong with the force. But then you're also acknowledging that, but Edmund Exley's what's wrong with the police when you're thinking more about your own career than you're thinking of the point of your career. are you really serving the community? And I think that sequence is just so good. Particularly, I love the scene out in the hotel where they've taken the guy out there and they're working him over, and it's just so raw and it's so hard. But there's so many good scenes in that movie. I mean, one of the other great scenes is, cut a whore to look like Veronica Lake doesn't make her Veronica Lake, and then he gets a drink in the face. It's like, what did she do that for? That was Veronica Lake.
LAPD, sit down.
Who in the hell do you think you are?
Yeah, take a walk, honey, before I haul your ass downtown.
You are making a large mistake.
Get away from our table.
Shut up. A hooker cut to look like Lana Turner is still a hooker.
Hey!
She just looks like Lana Turner.
She is Lana Turner.
What?
She is Lana Turner.
Oh, fantastic film. Fantastic.
I went and watched about 20 Whodunits that I'd not seen, and I forgot to watch LA Confidential.
Oh, have you never seen it?
I have. I've seen it. I saw it when it came out.
Yeah.
And I've caught scenes from it, sections from it, whenever it pops up on TV, and I'm always sort of struck by how beautiful it looks, and also just Danny DeVito in it. Just the role that he's playing. He's a great character. It's another film that's stacked with great performances. And
everyone's great.
It's got that really bleak ending. A Pyrrhic victory.
Shall I tell you what my pick was? That I was I didn't want to bring it up in case Cargill or yourself had it, so I said I didn't want to step on anyone's toes.
In a good murder mystery, we deduce.
Okay,
what
go on.
The answer's going to be.
Go on.
Okay, what have we not talked about? Is it Okay, it's not going to be Who Framed Roger Rabbit because you already spoke about that on a different episode.
Roger Rabbit.
It's give me a clue. Is it an ensemble film?
It's definitely. It basically is almost the stereotypical Agatha Christie. Whodunit.
Is it a Murder on the Orient Express?
No, but we've already mentioned the director. The director has already been mentioned by one of Kevin's picks, actually.
Brian De Palma. No, one of my picks. My picks. Oh, Robert Altman. And my pick has to be Gosford Park.
Gosford Park.
I solved that.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, we know the very idea of service is offensive to you, George.
Hello, I'm Morris Wiseman.
Who?
Bought marmalade. Dear me, I call that very feeble.
Brought you some coffee.
If I wanted coffee, I'd have rung for it.
Mr. Weissman, tell us about the film we're going to make.
It's a detective story. Murder in the middle of the night, a lot of guests for the weekend, everyone's a suspect. That sort of thing.
Horrid.
Gosford Park is, and I revisited it last week, and it is an absolute cracker. It's it's the stereotypical Agatha Christie type whodunit where you have an ensemble of these upper British class people coming to an estate house for a shooting weekend, and so a murder happens halfway through the film. But what immediately strikes this film apart, from all of the rest, is the point of view of the story. And the point of view of the story is it's all told from the people, the servants, the people, the downstairs people. And I absolutely adore the juxtaposition, as we said, of the seeing the stiff upper class people,
Downton Abbey kind.
Downton Abbey. Well, it was written by Julian.
It's Julian Fellows, isn't it?
Yeah. I was going to make a Downton Abbey joke, but
it's Julian Fellows.
Yeah.
But what I love about this film is
I've never seen Downton Abbey.
Well, I haven't seen.
I'm an American, so we're obsessed with it.
What do you like about it? Explain to us, what do you love about those English period costume dramas that England does so well that the Americans eat up?
It's the fact that it is so removed from our own society and what was happening here. Like, we have our own, the idea of of an inherited ruling class is very foreign to us. And so it almost borders on fantasy film for Americans. The idea of being born into wealth and opulence and the differences between, that established class as opposed to what we struggle with here in the United States, which is purely one of economic class.
Yeah.
You can be born into wealth, but that doesn't mean you're always wealthy or that anybody, has to treat you a certain way. And we're fascinated by the entire structure of it because there are rules and there's, I put a gun to my head. I cannot tell you the difference between a lord and a baron.
Neither can we. I can't. That's for sure.
But it is just it is the fact that it is this very particular era. It is an era that even though that stuff exists today, it's not handled in the same way that it used to be. There
still is a class system in the UK, though. It still goes on. You still have lords and ladies and barons and what have you.
And you have the House of Lords, which is completely alien to us. That's just that.
Keep it that way.
That is the fascination of it. Is just this. It is ultimately like it just feels like a grounded fantasy film. Fantasy without the swords. And wizards, but it is, it's just different. The way I see, many, folks from the UK obsessed with the Old West, and the Old West period here in the United States.
Yeah.
Where we're just like, that was just frontier life and it sucked. Like, there's the whole Western aspect of a very subgenre of an era that didn't really exist, which was a kind of fantastical version of that. But that's just our frontier era. Whereas I
get that sort of kick out of TV shows like Succession or House of Cards, where that's wealth on a scale that is it's so fantastical, and these people are in rarefied air, and everybody's so poised and so pointed and sharp with their words, and you're just watching very erudite people, I think, just navigate the world that doesn't relate at all to my own experiences. So it's like watching a sci-fi film.
But the thing about Gosford Park is that I think
to bring it back to Gosford.
No, I want to bring it back. I'm trying to.
Got to.
But what the point you're making, actually,
Downton Cast, where we talk all Downton Abbey all the time.
But I think what you're articulating there, Cargill, particularly, is illustrated beautifully in Downton Abbey, where, in actual fact, the whole class system is revealed to be a facade. It's a performance. In
Gosford Park,
when the middle class people, the aristocrats are in the room, they're performing for each other. But when they retreat to their bedrooms, they kind of lose that performance, and they have a different relationship with their servants. It's a more intimate relationship.
Gossiping and stuff.
And then when the servants are down in the decks, they have a really just matter of fact way of talking about each other. But as soon as they're in the presence of the aristocrats, they just all of a sudden just turn on the servant role, and I love that juxtaposition. But the thing I loved about this, there's a scene in this film which clearly stood out as my best bit, or my best bit of this film, and it kind of ties into what I said earlier about often my favorite whodunits are films that really aren't about the crime or solving the crime. And the moment that I absolutely love in Gosford Park is the moment when the crime actually occurs, and it's the most beautiful, serene moment, because we're presented with this estate house which is just busy with people on the upstairs, and then the people scurrying around underneath to make the people upstairs kind of like have everything they need and everything they want. But what happens is there's this pivotal moment after a dinner where everything's kind of like blown up, and Ivor Novello, is this actor, is at the piano, and he starts singing. And he has got a beautiful voice, and everyone in the drawing room just stops and listens.
I can give you the mountains, pools of shimmering blue. Call and I can be all you ask of me. Music in spring, flowers for a king. All these I bring to you.
And and then his voice just carries throughout the house, and it carries up the stairs up to the first floor, but it also carries down the stairwell down to the servants' quarters, and all the servants are just perched on the steps listening to this voice, and everyone is unified in this moment, just listening to this gorgeous voice. But we juxtapose it with seeing a murder take place. And it's gorgeous. It's just all the film, the whole film just quietens for this moment, and the crime happens, and then the film turns. I just love that moment.
Flowers for a king, all these I bring to you.
Please don't encourage him. Just go on and on and on.
I just watched it again recently because it's a great whodunit. But it's like when I watch Home Alone, or rewatch Home Alone, and I realise that all the stuff that goes on in Home Alone, all this crazy antics, is like the last 15-20 minutes of the film. There's a whole movie that is just the boy going about his day, just living, having Christmas by himself, and all the sort of the robbery and the home invasion is just the last 20 minutes of the film. And the same thing with Gosford Park, where it's like the actual murder in that film doesn't happen till like an hour and 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
And Stephen Fry plays a detective who comes in for like about 3 scenes. Mm-hmm. He's bumbling. He doesn't know what he's not a very competent detective, because his sergeant who's with him wants to do more detective work than he's doing, and he's just more interested in talking to Kirsten Scott Thomas and what have you.
Playing into the fact that it's actually the lower class people are the ones who actually do the working, and the middle class people are just the face. They're just go,
that's
do
good.
That.
I didn't put those
the
two
whole
together.
film is that the middle class people are just playing the role of the people who are playing the role of like the leaders and the head figures of all these different institutions.
But it's a very nebulous whodunit, because they don't solve the crime. It's the people that have perpetrated it. They unload why they did it. They get it off their chest, and it doesn't have that classic thing of someone solving the crime. It's the killers come clean about why they did it, and it's really affecting, and it's really kind of quite sad, the reasons behind it. But
that's one I can watch over and over and over again. It doesn't matter. It's not the whodunit isn't what's important. It's this life that's revealed. They made a whole TV series about it, Downton Abbey. So
I need to revisit it.
It's a great movie.
I didn't like it when it came out.
Beautiful.
You did not?
No. But I remember my frustration at the time was all Altman's filmmaking, because I remember there being frustration with, characters like turning and having conversations behind their back, and then the soundtrack being kind of muffled, and like it's like characters are mumbling, and it's like I want to hear what these characters are saying. Why can I not?
But you know what that was? He mic'd up every single character. So everyone that was in the scene, even though they're not the focus of the scene, you might have 20 odd people in a room. Every one of them are mic'd, and he just, in the post-production, he just decided to raise the levels on one person, and everyone was still performing as if the camera was on them. Mm-hmm. But he was just deciding, I'm just going to raise up the 2 guys playing pool over there, or playing snooker, and no, I'm just going to shift over to this woman who's like serving the tea, and I just felt like I was floating through that manor and just stealing glimpses.
It feels like I said, I need to revisit it as somebody who's like, seriously, like me and my wife watched Downton Abbey, and we went and saw the movie released in theaters, and like we've like taken that deep
I forgot
dive,
there was a movie.
There was a movie.
Was it good?
There's a second one coming out this Christmas.
There is.
Yeah.
It was fan service, which is it is the more effete version of an MCU movie. It's a lot of times, you just kind of go to see those movies to enjoy watching your favorite characters interact in certain ways. And that's very
what was
much
the post-credit scene? Maggie Smith just saying, "For heaven's sake, woman!"
And I do it again.
It was Lord Crawley coming back from the grave. Dun dun dun.
Oh God.
Yeah, no, it was entertaining. We had a good time, but there is another one coming out. But having gone through that, the lighthearted Julian Fellows version of that, I kind of want to go back and revisit that darker, more sinister version of that exact same world.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it is beautiful.
I'll tell you for me, that film blended into the background. It was like it was a film that came out in 2001, I think it was. I enjoyed it at the time. I couldn't remember much of it. Went back to revisit it for this podcast and loved it. I thought, oh, that is a great movie.
Yeah.
That is a really well done film and refreshing in this era where there's so much emphasis on IP, just to be with characters that you don't know who they are.
You guys inspired me to not only revisit that, but it made me think of it. Gosford Park gets mixed up in my head with something else that I have not seen since I was a kid. That is also a Whodunit, Gorky Park.
Oh, yeah, totally different film. But yeah,
totally different film. But I kind of want to watch Gosford Park and Gorky Park together tonight.
Shit,
what the hell is Gorky Park? I've never heard that.
Was it William Hurt?
William Hurt. It's got a great cast. It's Gorky Park. It is essentially.
I'm picturing Muppets.
A Whodunit set in Soviet Russia.
Yeah,
I've seen. Oh my god,
1983, and of course that is a. What's weird about that is, of course, it's an American film that is presenting positive Soviet characters, which was a thing you really didn't do in 1983.
Was it state funded by the Russians?
No, it's American.
No, not at all. It's
that's bizarre.
Let's see. The cast is
CIA wouldn't be happy with that.
William Hurt, Lee Marvin, Brian Dennehy.
Yeah.
That's a good cast.
That is. It's a Michael Apted film.
Michael Apted.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maker of one of the best documentary series ever. The 7 Up TV series.
Just died recently.
R.I.P. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know he passed away. Oh,
yeah, just very recently.
The ups are over then.
Oh, they finished. Yeah, no, I think. Well,
I think they'll continue. I think they'll continue for the lifespan of the remaining people.
Oh,
but
wow.
I don't think. Well, he's not going to be there to see it through. I think he was 80 when he passed. But what a filmmaker!
He was never going to see it through because he was doing that as an adult when they were 7. So
they're near 70 now. They're probably they were 63.
They're in their 60s.
They're in their
definitely.
60s, so they're 63. So so it's an amazing series.
For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, there's this great documentary series where Michael Apted filmed a bunch of kids at the age of 7 and called it 7 Up, and then decided to do it again when they were 14, and then again when they were 21, and then it became a full-on series where every 7 years
it's remarkable
up with and all these people, and it's just about the people in their lives, and you get to watch them from the time they're 7 years old and what their hopes or dreams are, and not all of them survive through the series.
No, and some of them drop out. The one thing the one regret he said he had about that series was that he wished he casted more girls originally. That there was too many boys in it.
Oh, right.
So
there was a lot of boys. Yeah, but I genuinely feel it's one of the most important documentary series ever made, and I feel it's something that should be shown to all young teenagers to kind of like steal them and make them aware of the twists and turns. Yeah, the twists and turns of life, and how things will change every 7 years in your life for better and worse. And it's gripping. From one series to the next, you leave one, at the age of 21, you might leave one character at the age of 21 really worried about them and feel this person might not be around when we see them to 28. And it's a series. I'm sorry, I love it so much. So please do check it out if you can. I don't know where it's not available anywhere really. It's not on. I haven't found it anyway.
It's the 21st century. I think you can find whatever you want to these days.
If you know ways and means.
So, what was it? You went with Gosford Park.
Yes.
Cargill went with LA Confidential, and I bungled it and went with The Thing. But I think
I'm happy with that. I think that's a great.
But I think we nailed it, and I think there's some cracking recommendations though.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to look out for what was it? Hyacinth.
Girl with Hyacinth. Girl with Hyacinth.
So absolutely, like that is seriously. Don't look anything up on it. Track it down where you can. You guys might have an easier job finding it than we do over here in the States. I had to get a download of it from somebody who ripped it, but because it's just never been available here. But yeah, it is well worth watching. It is one of those movies that you look at it and some of there is a single shot with real camera work in it, and you're going to be like, no way was this made in 1950. This is groundbreaking stuff. And it's just a movie that's ahead of its time and is so smart and well crafted. And absolutely, if you can find it out there, watch that movie.
Wow.
I was getting weirded out. Just one last thing. When I was watching The Longer Boy, and it's I think that's also 1970, I think. It's
1972, right I believe.
Yeah. And he had a blender. And I thought, wait, what? They had blenders in I thought that was like an 80s invention.
Oh, no.
And I realized, oh my God, there's not much time between this. Well, what's a massive chunk of time between now and the 70s is not that much time in terms of like when you're looking at how similar life is back then.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cargill, listen, thanks a million. That was fantastic.
Truly, I am so glad you were on for this episode, Cargill, because your knowledge of this topic was very impressive, and I'm grateful that you were there to pick up so much of the slack for us two dopes. And we really appreciate you giving us your time to come on the show.
Guys, thank you so much for having me.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Massaworm. That's MASSAWYRM. And you can find my books wherever you get your books.
Sea of Rust, it's absolutely fantastic. Definitely get that down you. I really genuinely enjoyed it. I thought it was a beautiful story and just a fascinating way to tell a post-apocalyptic tale from the point of view of machines. It's really great.
If you want to have your pants scared off you, watch Sinister, because I watched it during the week, and I'm never going to push the lawnmower the same again. I'm always going to...
We mentioned that on last week's episode with Kate Dolan, a director friend of ours, for jump scares. The lawnmower gag in Sinister. Holy shit. I think I did actually saw myself when that jump happened. But
that we're really proud of that sequence. That sequence came out real well.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Cargill. Really appreciate it. And everyone go listen to Cargill's podcast.
Junk Food Cinema.
Oh, yeah. If you're listening to a podcast and you like podcasts about movies, every week, me and my buddy, Brian Salisbury, we pick a deep fried favorite of ours and just take a deep dive and spend an hour kind of picking apart movies we love, movies we think are underappreciated. And several of the movies we talked about today, we have done episodes on my podcast. Yeah. We recently revisited The Long Goodbye. And we've dug into a bunch of these. This is definitely our jam.
I was going to say, also your episode you just did recently with Al Horner for Script Apart was fantastic. Where you delved into the writing of Sinister.
Listen to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. That was a lot of fun.
So there you go. Thanks, Cargill.
Thanks, guys.
Great to have
we'll
you.
Let you go. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Oh my God. I have got a shopping list full of films that I need to watch, and it was great. Like Cargill just had so much knowledge and was so passionate about Whodunits.
I'm surprised none of us mentioned Chinatown, but then it's a crime film, I suppose.
For me, that's a total noir.
But The Big Sleep for me is a total noir, and it gets mentioned as a whodunit. So.
Yeah,
I don't know anymore.
I don't know. I watched The Big Sleep, and I don't know who did it. That's
We've come to the end of the Whodunit episode, and we still haven't figured out what a Whodunit is.
Come here. We need to get on with business. We need to figure out.
No, we don't. Don't tell me what next week's episode. I need a break. I'm exhausted.
No, I've got this lovely, juicy, jam-packed topic.
But wait, we should tell people. It's our season finale. It's episode 10, season 2. We did it. We did another whole season. But not yet, because we've got to figure out what next week's episode is.
This was the penultimate episode. Also, anyway, let's spin the wheel for the final time this season, right? I am so delighted that I get the chance to do this. I'm going to. Are you ready, Kevin? I'm going to spin. It's going to be very loud in my ears. I won't be able to hear you for a second.
Okay.
I am just hitting spin. It is very loud. And
strawberries. Elephant juice.
Okay.
Give me something really easy. No, something really easy. No, Will.
Okay. Best Muppets scene.
Okay.
Best Muppets scene. Muppets.
Well, that's just the two of us. It's just going to be a whole episode of us two Muppets just talking.
It's an easy one. It really is an easy one. So you're very much limited to. But the thing about this is that you actually have.
Wait.
What?
I want to. Does that Muppets include the other Jim Henson films like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And that raunchy one that came out. The Detective de Noir.
Oh, the Melissa McCarthy one.
Yeah, but you can't remember the name of it right now. There was something Murders.
Happy Town Murders.
Happy Town Murders as well, right? So, listen, research-wise, you actually have a very limited scope, which is good.
Oh, that's good.
So, potentially, I think you can watch them all, before we next speak. Every one of them.
So can you. There's going to be two of us on this episode, not just me.
I've got a few blind spots, and I'm going to do it.
It's late here. It's late because Cargill is in Texas, so we're this is much later than we usually record.
Yeah,
but
so please, everyone, like, and what am I supposed to say on this thing?
Like, share, subscribe, 5 stars, rate, review us. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week. We're so rusty. It's weird. We take 7 days off. We can't even remember how to end the podcast.
Kevin, I don't know what hour it is. Everyone, thanks very much for listening. We're going to say goodbye now, and goodbye.
And just remember, the butler did it.
The Best Bits podcast is produced by Will and Kevin.
All audio clips and music heard in this episode is the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff.
If you have any notes, comments, scene suggestions, or just want to get in touch with us, email us at bestbitspodcast@gmail.com.
And here is a clip from the lads' latest Mini Bits bonus show. The full episode, plus 80 more, are available on their Patreon.
See ya, Mossy. I gotta go in and record another one of these fucking Mini Bits.
Oh, yes, this is all it.
I know. What are you doing?
Right now, on the Academy screener site, and I hit play, because there's only a few films on it for the first month or two. There's only like about less than 10 films on it. And Guy Ritchie's The Covenant is on here. So I hit play on that, and I'm hearing we're out in Afghanistan, and I'm hearing all the dirt, and I hear vehicles, and I hear the sound effects of characters walking. But when characters open their mouths, I don't hear any dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
there's no dialogue.
They've uploaded the wrong audio track. It's like that Tom Cruise trailer where it was just the sound effects.
Have you met an SP?
Yeah, and this film has been up on the screener site for a few weeks now, and they still have the wrong one here. Well, I tell you what films are actually up there for all Academy members to see, and to see what they've put up there.
But first of all, let's just throw to our theme. And I have to say, the feedback from my thank you ballad was quite fierce.
The power of Christ compels you!
So I asked Mossy, who is a friend of my dad's at the quiz, sing us a theme tune.
Oh.
So over to Mossy.
Hit the cards. I'm fine, I'll get it done in one take. It's the Mini Bits. Or podcast, what will they say? With Will and Kevin Cock.
The best fucking podcast.
That'll do.
That'll do.
My God.
Thank you, Mossy.
You would make an angel weep. That voice would make an angel weep.
Telling you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Boolabus.
It only cost us 2 months Patreon money, so, you know.
Is that all? Money well spent, in my eyes.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get much for €20. Will, you were telling me before the intro that you were looking at stuff on the Academy Screeners website.
The Academy Awards. So for official members, yes. So they don't send out DVDs anymore. So how you do all your streaming stuff is all via the Academy website. And the streaming season has begun, which is exciting. So it means for the rest of the year...
Did it ever end?
It does end. It does. After the Academy Awards, there's about 2 weeks, and they take all the films down, and then they begin again at the end of August, and they all start coming up. So it's a whole new collection of hopefuls.
So how many films are on there?
Right now, about 10. Actually, 10 exactly. I can tell you the 10.
Oh, go on, tell me.
John Wick 4.
For the Oscars. Oh, because there's like...
Yes, they're adding in stunt category, aren't they?
Are they adding it in? Is the stunt category being added?
I believe they're adding in some sort of stunt category.
Breaking news straight from an Academy member's mouth.
Because they're adding in stunt category, aren't they?
slash film.
I don't know. Did I read this in an article? I feel they were.
I
felt they were.
Have long overlooked stunts, and my God, it's pure artistry.
Yeah.
And it is incredibly, well, these days, it's all fucking rubber computer generated avatars.
That's why we should highlight, that's why these people should be getting their Oscars when someone's actually going out it. Yeah,
go back,
absolutely.
Go back and give it to your man from Mad Max who broke his legs.
Give it to Richard Farnsworth, who was a stuntman and starred in The Straight Story. Yeah, Richard Farnsworth was a career stuntman. Absolutely.
Wasn't that also the case with Machete? What's your man, Machete? Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo.
Is
really?
It Trejo or Trejo?
I always call him Trejo, but he just says, call me Danny.
I was going to say that back to you.
Nah.
I was like, just
weird.
Because we just call him